He thought accepting a remote forest property from his dead uncle would finally give him and his daughter a fresh start. Instead, Marcus found $255 million buried beneath the trees, a corporate conspiracy that had already killed once, and a choice that would either save his family or destroy them. But before we dive into the story, make sure to smash subscribe, because tomorrow we have an extra special story for you that will blow your mind. The envelope arrived on a Tuesday, certified mail, the kind that required a signature and made Marcus's stomach drop before he even opened it. He stood in the cramped hallway of his apartment building, paint peeling off the walls in long, sad strips, fluorescent light buzzing overhead like a dying insect. His hands were still stained with grease from fixing Mrs. Chen's garbage disposal that morning. 34 years old, and his life had become a series of odd jobs barely strung together with duct tape and desperation. Marcus Reed wasn't supposed to end up like this. He'd had plans once. He and Emily had talked about opening their own construction business, about building custom homes in the mountains, about raising their daughter somewhere with clean air and room to breathe. But cancer doesn't care about plans. Emily had fought for 18 months before she died 3 years ago, and Marcus had been fighting ever since to keep his head above water and give their daughter Lily something resembling a childhood. He tore open the envelope standing right there in the hallway. The letterhead was from Patterson and Burke, attorneys at law, out of Telluride, Colorado. His eyes scanned the formal language until they caught on words that made him read the sentence 3 times. Estate of Gerald Martin Reed, sole beneficiary, remote property consisting of approximately 43 acres. Uncle Gerald. Marcus hadn't seen him in over 20 years. The family ghost, the one who'd disappeared into the wilderness when Marcus was 12 and never looked back. Every Thanksgiving someone would mention crazy Uncle Gerald living like a hermit in the mountains, and everyone would shake their heads and change the subject. Now he was dead, and apparently Marcus was the only person he'd left anything to. The apartment door swung open and Lily appeared, backpack sliding off one shoulder, dark hair pulled into a messy ponytail. 8 years old and already carrying too much of her mother's absence in her eyes. "Daddy, I'm hungry," she said, then noticed his face. "What's wrong?" Marcus folded the letter and managed a smile. "Nothing's wrong, Bug. How was school?" "Boring? Tommy said his dad says we're poor because you don't have a real job." The words hit harder than they should have. Marcus knelt down and pulled her into a hug, breathing in the kid smell of her hair, fruit shampoo and playground dust. "We're rich in the ways that matter," he said, the lie tasting bitter. "Come on, let's see what we can make for dinner." That night, after Lily fell asleep clutching the stuffed rabbit Emily had given her the day she was born, Marcus sat at the kitchen table and read the letter again. And again. 43 acres in the San Juan Mountains. A cabin. Some outbuildings. The lawyer's note said the property had been assessed for estate purposes at approximately $18,000, but there were back taxes owed and the structures were in severe disrepair. $18,000 wouldn't change his life, but land was land. Maybe he could sell it. Maybe it was worth more than they thought. Maybe, just maybe, this was the break he'd been praying for. 3 days later, Marcus stood in his cousin Derek's backyard, surrounded by family he barely recognized anymore, wishing he'd never mentioned the inheritance. Derek's Labor Day barbecue had turned into an impromptu family reunion when word spread that Crazy Gerald had finally died. "You're actually thinking about accepting it?" Aunt Marcia asked, her voice dripping with the same condescension she'd perfected over 63 years of judging everyone around her. She held a plastic cup of Chardonnay like it was a scepter. "Marcus, honey, that property is worthless. Gerald lived up there like an animal for 2 decades. "More like a lunatic," Derek added, flipping burgers with the confidence of someone who'd never missed a mortgage payment. "Dude didn't even have electricity the last 15 years, just candles and paranoia." Cousin Jennifer, who'd married a dentist and never let anyone forget it, shook her head. The back taxes alone are probably more than it's worth. You'd be throwing good money after bad. I'm not throwing anything, Marcus said quietly, hating how defensive he sounded. I'm just considering my options. Options? Derek laughed, loud enough to make people turn. Man, your option is to sign whatever papers let the county take it for the taxes and forget Gerald ever existed. That's what a smart person would do. Marcus felt his jaw tighten. He looked around at these people, his blood relatives, with their nice houses and their stable jobs and their certainty that they knew better than him about everything. None of them had visited when Emily was dying. None of them had called after the funeral. None of them knew what it was like to choose between fixing Lily's winter coat or paying the electric bill. Gerald must have had his reasons, Marcus said, keeping his voice level, for living the way he did, for leaving it to me. His reasons were mental illness, Aunt Marcia said bluntly. The man was disturbed, Marcus. Everyone knew it. Why do you think he cut off the entire family? Maybe the family gave him a reason, Marcus heard himself say. The backyard went quiet, except for the hiss of the grill. Derek's face hardened. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing, Marcus said, but something had crystallized in that moment. These people had written Gerald off, crazy, disturbed, worthless, the same way they'd written off Marcus after Emily died. Poor Marcus, can't get it together, can't hold down a real job, raising that little girl in a cramped apartment. Look, Jennifer said in her therapist voice, the one that made Marcus want to punch something. We're just trying to help you make a smart decision. That property is dangerous. It's isolated. There are bears up there, Marcus, and worse, people disappear in those mountains. Plus, winter's coming, Derek added. You planning to live up there? What about Lily's school? What about heat, water? I haven't decided anything yet, Marcus said. Well, decide fast, Aunt Marcia said, draining her wine. Because accepting that inheritance is about the dumbest thing you could do. But then again, Gerald always did have a talent for making terrible choices. Must run in that branch of the family. The insult hung in the air like smoke. Marcus set down his beer untouched. I think we're gonna head out. Thanks for the burger, Derek. We didn't eat yet, Derek protested, but there was something satisfied in his eyes. He'd proven his point, put Marcus in his place. Lost my appetite, Marcus said. He found Lily in the living room, playing quietly with Derek's kids' toys that they were too old for now but refused to share. She looked up when he appeared, reading his face the way kids do. We leaving? She asked. Yeah, Bug. Let's go home. In the truck, driving back through the fading summer evening, Lily was quiet for a long time. Then she said, They don't like you very much. Marcus glanced over. What makes you say that? The way they talk to you, like you're stupid. 8 years old, and already she could see it. Marcus's throat felt tight. They're just worried about us, in their own way. I don't think so, Lily said, staring out the window. I think they're mean. She wasn't wrong. That night, after Lily was asleep, Marcus spread the estate papers across the kitchen table. He pulled up Google Maps on his cracked phone screen and found the coordinates the lawyer had provided. The property was deep in the San Juan National Forest, accessible only by a Forest Service road that probably turned to mud in spring and ice in winter. The nearest town was a place called Ridge Hollow, population 912. The satellite image showed nothing but trees. Dense, endless green, broken only by the silver thread of a creek running through the property. He zoomed in until he could make out a clearing, maybe where the cabin stood, but the resolution was too poor to see details. $18,000 minus back taxes would leave him with maybe $12,000. Not life-changing money. Barely 6 months' rent, but land, real land, a place to start over. He thought about Derek's smug face. Aunt Marcia's casual cruelty, all of them so certain he'd fail at this too, so convinced that Gerald had left him nothing but problems. Marcus opened his laptop and sent an email to the lawyer. "I'd like to accept the inheritance and arrange a visit to inspect the property. Please advise on next steps." He hit send before he could second-guess himself. 2 weeks later, Marcus loaded everything they owned into his beat-up Ford F-150. Everything fit easily. After Emily died, he'd sold most of their furniture, their second car, anything with value. What remained was clothes, Lily's toys, some kitchen stuff, tools, and the box of Emily's things he couldn't bear to open but couldn't throw away. Lily sat in the passenger seat, wearing her favorite purple jacket, clutching her rabbit. "Is it far?" she asked. "About 7 hours," Marcus said, pulling onto the highway. "We'll stop for lunch." "What if I hate it?" Marcus glanced at her. "Then we figure something else out. This is an adventure, Bug. We're exploring, seeing what's out there." "What if there really are bears? Then we'll be smart and careful. Bears don't want to bother us if we don't bother them." She seemed to consider this. "Daddy." "Yeah?" "Did Mommy ever see the mountains?" The question caught him off guard. Yeah, she loved the mountains. We went camping in Colorado before you were born. She said it was the most beautiful place she'd ever seen." Lily nodded, satisfied, and turned to watch the landscape blur past. They drove through changing terrain, leaving behind the flat plains, climbing into foothills, then real mountains. The air grew thinner and cooler. Pine trees crowded the roadside. Marcus's ears popped as they gained elevation. They stopped for lunch in a small mountain town, burgers and fries at a diner where everyone seemed to know everyone except them. The waitress was kind, though, bringing Lily extra whipped cream for her hot chocolate without being asked. Back on the road, the pavement eventually gave way to gravel, then to dirt. The truck bounced over ruts and rocks. Marcus's hands gripped the steering wheel tighter as the road narrowed, trees pressing in from both sides. "Is this it?" Lily asked, her voice small. "Getting close," Marcus said, checking the directions the lawyer had provided. The road climbed higher, switchbacking up the mountain. Through gaps in the trees, Marcus caught glimpses of valleys spreading below, vast and empty, beautiful and terrifying in equal measure. Then he saw the mailbox, dented and rusted, leaning at an angle like it might fall over any second. The number matched the property address. Marcus turned onto what could barely be called a driveway, more like 2 tire tracks through overgrown grass and weeds. They drove for another quarter-mile, branches scraping the truck's sides, before the cabin came into view. Lily's intake of breath said it all. The structure sagged like a tired old man. The roof looked like it might cave in with the next strong wind. Windows were intact, but so dirty they were nearly opaque. The porch had a hole in it big enough to break an ankle. Weeds grew waist-high all around. Marcus put the truck in park and sat there, engine idling, staring at what he'd inherited. "It looks haunted," Lily whispered. "It looks like it needs work," Marcus corrected, but his heart was sinking. The lawyer had said severe disrepair. This was beyond severe. This was condemned. He turned off the engine. The silence rushed in, broken only by wind through pine trees and the distant sound of running water. The creek, probably. "Stay in the truck for a minute," Marcus said. "Let me check it out first." "I want to come with you." "Lily, please, Daddy. I don't want to be alone." He looked at her face, saw the fear there, and relented. "Okay, but stay close to me and watch your step." They climbed out of the truck. The air was thin and cold, smelling of pine and earth and something else, something wild. Marcus grabbed his flashlight and approached the cabin carefully, testing each porch step before putting his weight on it. The front door was locked. He dug the key from his pocket, the one the lawyer had mailed him. It was old brass, heavy, worn smooth by years of use. Uncle Gerald's key. The lock turned with surprising ease. The door swung open with a horror movie creak. Inside was darkness and the smell of dust and time. Marcus flicked on his flashlight, the beam cutting through shadows. The main room was bigger than he expected, with a stone fireplace dominating one wall. Furniture sat covered in sheets like ghosts. Everything was coated in thick dust, but nothing looked damaged. No animal nests, no water damage, just decades of stillness. "It's not so bad inside," Lily said quietly, pressing against his side. Marcus moved through the space slowly. A kitchen area with an old wood-burning stove, a table and chairs, shelves lined with mason jars and canned goods. He checked one jar, peaches, the label dated 2019. 5 years old, but the seal looked intact. There were 2 bedrooms. One contained a simple bed frame and dresser. The other looked like it had been used for storage, boxes stacked neatly, labels written in careful handwriting. "Uncle Gerald," Marcus murmured, reading the labels. "Winter clothes, tools, medical supplies." This wasn't the lair of a crazy hermit. This was organized, purposeful. Someone had lived here with intention. They explored for an hour, finding more surprises. The cabin had a root cellar stocked with preserved food. There was a well with a hand pump that still worked, producing clear cold water. A shed contained tools in good condition, protected from the elements. Firewood stacked under a tarp, aged and dry. Someone had maintained this place, recently. As the sun started to sink behind the mountains, painting the sky orange and purple, Marcus made a fire in the fireplace. The chimney drew perfectly. Soon warmth began to push back the chill. Lily spread out her sleeping bag near the fire. They ate granola bars and apples for dinner, sitting on the floor because Marcus didn't trust the furniture yet. "Daddy," Lily said, her voice drowsy in the firelight, "why did Uncle Gerald live here all alone?" Marcus considered the question. "I don't know, Bug. Maybe he liked the quiet. Maybe he was looking for something." "What kind of something?" "Peace, maybe, or answers. Sometimes people need to go away from everything to figure out what matters." "Did he figure it out?" Marcus looked around the cabin, at the careful organization, the preserved supplies, the way everything had been maintained right up until Gerald died. "I think maybe he did." Lily fell asleep quickly, exhausted from the drive. Marcus sat by the fire, listening to the sounds of the forest night. Wind in the trees, the creek babbling somewhere in the darkness, an owl calling from somewhere close, and other sounds, snapping branches, rustling in the brush outside. Footsteps, maybe, or maybe just his imagination. He'd brought his grandfather's old revolver, hadn't fired it in years, but it was loaded and within reach, just in case. Bears, the family had said, and worse. Around midnight, Marcus finally dozed off, sitting against the wall, one hand on the gun, the other near Lily's sleeping form. He woke to pale dawn light filtering through dirty windows and Lily tugging on his sleeve. "Daddy, there's somebody outside!" Marcus was on his feet instantly, heart pounding, grabbing the revolver. "Where?" Lily pointed toward the back of the cabin. "I heard them, walking around." Marcus moved to the window, staying low. He peered out through grime and morning mist. Nothing. Just trees and shadows and early light. Then movement, a flash of brown disappearing into the undergrowth. Deer, he realized. Just deer. He exhaled, setting down the gun. "It's okay, Bug. Just animals. We're in their home, remember? They're checking us out." But Lily's fear had shaken him. This place was isolated. If something happened, help was hours away. No cell service, no neighbors, just them and the wilderness. Over the next 2 days, Marcus worked on making the cabin livable. He cleaned windows until he could actually see through them, swept out dust, aired out the bedrooms, tested the wood stove and found it worked perfectly. Uncle Gerald had known how to maintain his equipment. Lily helped, making a game of it, pretending they were pioneers settling the frontier. Her laughter echoed through the empty rooms, and for the first time in years, Marcus heard something like joy in her voice. On the 3rd day, he decided to explore the property. They packed water and snacks and set out, following what looked like a trail that led deeper into the forest. The land was beautiful in a raw, untamed way. Massive pines towered overhead. The creek sparkled over smooth stones. Wildflowers grew in patches of sunlight. They saw deer, a fox, birds Marcus couldn't name. But there were strange things too, marks carved into tree trunks at regular intervals. Not random, but deliberate. Symbols Marcus didn't recognize. Rock cairns stacked at trail junctions, too carefully arranged to be natural. And about a mile from the cabin, they found something else. An old mine entrance, or what looked like one. Timbers framing a dark opening in the hillside. Marcus approached carefully, shining his flashlight inside. The tunnel went back about 20 feet before it was blocked by a cave-in. Broken timbers, piled rocks. But near the entrance, someone had left equipment, rusted pickaxes, an old sluice box, mining pans. Was Uncle Gerald a miner? Lily asked. Maybe, Marcus said. These mountains are full of old gold claims, most of them played out 100 years ago. But something about the scene nagged at him. The equipment was old, sure, but not 100-year-old old. Some of it looked like it had been used within the last couple decades. They hiked back as the afternoon light grew long and golden. Marcus kept noticing the marked trees, the cairns. Uncle Gerald had created some kind of system, markers throughout the property. But marking what? That evening, after Lily fell asleep, Marcus lit a lantern and started going through the boxes in the storage room more carefully. Most contained exactly what their labels said: clothes, tools, supplies, but one box labeled simply personal held different contents: photograph albums, pictures of Gerald as a young man, smiling, normal-looking, surrounded by family. Marcus recognized his own father in some photos, younger, happier than Marcus remembered him. Then photos of Gerald alone, in these mountains, building the cabin, always alone. The smile gradually fading from his face over the years. And at the bottom of the box, a journal. Marcus lifted it out carefully. Leather-bound, thick, filled with dense handwriting. He opened to a random page, dated 15 years ago. Found another outcropping today along the eastern ridge, same composition as the main vein. This deposit is larger than I thought, larger than anyone knows. I've hidden the entrance again, can't risk claim jumpers, can't trust anyone with this. Marcus's pulse quickened. He flipped to another entry. They came by again today, Mountain Consolidated, offered me $200,000 for the land. Tried to act casual, but I could see the hunger in their eyes. They know there's something here. They've been testing the creek water, taking samples. I told them to leave. They said I was making a mistake, threatened me in that polite corporate way. I'm not afraid of them. I've survived worse. Marcus flipped forward, reading entries at random. The journal was part diary, part geological log. Gerald documented finding something, some kind of mineral deposit. He'd spent years quietly exploring it, documenting it, hiding it. The final entries were from earlier this year. Getting old. Heart's not what it was. Doc in town says I need to see a specialist, but what's the point? I've done what I came here to do. Kept it safe, kept it secret. Marcus's boy will inherit this. Hope he's smart enough to understand what I'm leaving him. Hope he's strong enough to protect it. The vein runs deeper than they know, deeper than I could explore alone. It's worth more than this entire county. Worth killing for, if they knew. I've hidden the entrance well. Only someone who knows where to look will find it. Only family. The entry ended there. Marcus read it 3 times, hands shaking slightly. A mineral deposit. Worth more than the county. Worth killing for. He stood up, pacing the small room. This was crazy. Uncle Gerald had clearly been losing it. Paranoid. Delusional about some imaginary treasure. Except the journal was too detailed, too technical. Gerald described specific geological formations, mineral compositions. He'd obviously had some training, some knowledge, and the mining company visits were specific. Names, dates, offers that increased over time. Marcus returned to the journal, starting from the beginning this time. The early entries were from 23 years ago, right after Gerald had moved to the property. Left everything behind today. Family doesn't understand, but they never did. Found this land through a forestry auction. 43 acres nobody wanted. Too remote, too rough. Perfect for what I need. Peace, solitude, a chance to start over after Margaret left. So that was it. A bad divorce had driven Gerald into the wilderness. Not crazy, just heartbroken. The entries continued, documenting Gerald learning to live off-grid, building the cabin, establishing his systems, and then, about 5 years in, everything changed. Was digging a new root cellar when I hit something strange. Rock formation that doesn't match anything else on the property. Brought a sample to a geologist friend in Durango. He got very quiet when he saw it. Asked me where I found it. I lied, said a creek bed miles from here. He told me it was alexandrite. Rare as hell. Gemstone quality. He offered me $5,000 for that one sample. I took it but didn't tell him where more could be found. Came home and started exploring. The formation extends deep into the hillside behind the cabin. There might be more, a lot more. Marcus sat down hard on a box. Alexandrite. He pulled out his phone, forgetting there was no service, then remembered the encyclopedia set he'd seen on a shelf in the main room. He found the volume covering gemstones. Alexandrite, discovered in Russia in 1832, extremely rare, changed color under different lighting. One of the most valuable gemstones in the world. High-quality alexandrite could sell for $15,000 to $20,000 per carat. Per carat. He returned to the journal, flipping through pages. Gerald had taught himself geology. He'd explored the deposit carefully, secretly. He'd documented finding not just alexandrite but other rare minerals. Lithium deposits, emeralds, rare earth elements that were becoming increasingly valuable for technology. The alexandrite vein alone could be worth tens of millions, one entry read. But I can't extract it alone. Can't bring in help without word spreading. This county's full of people who'd kill for a fraction of this. Mountain Consolidated has been buying up mineral rights everywhere. If they knew what I had here, they'd find a way to take it. So I wait. I document. I keep the secret. Someday my family will benefit, just not today. Marcus checked the date on that entry. 11 years ago. Gerald had been sitting on a fortune for over a decade and told no one. The journal's final pages included crude maps, the property sketched out. X marks scattered across the page. One larger X behind the cabin with a note. Main entrance, hidden beneath false floor in southwest corner of basement. Pull up third board from wall. Stairs descend 40 feet to main chamber. Seam extends southeast. Multiple branch tunnels. Caution, some passages unstable. Basement. Marcus hadn't found a basement. He'd searched the cabin thoroughly. He grabbed the lantern and went to the main room, careful not to wake Lily. He examined the floor carefully. Wooden planks, old and worn but solid. In the southwest corner, near the stone fireplace, he pressed down on each board, testing. The third board from the wall gave slightly. He examined it more closely. The nails were there, but they'd been cut, filed down to nubs. The board was held in place by friction alone. Marcus pried it up carefully. Beneath was darkness. He held the lantern over the gap. Stairs, stone steps leading down into the earth. His heart hammered against his ribs. This was it, what Gerald had been protecting. He looked over at Lily, sleeping peacefully by the dying fire. He should wait until morning. Go down in daylight. Be smart about this. But his hands were already pulling up the next board and the next, creating an opening large enough to fit through. He grabbed his heavy-duty flashlight, the one with the bright LED beam, and lowered himself onto the stairs. They were carved from living rock, smooth from use. The temperature dropped with each step down. The air smelled different here, mineral-rich, slightly metallic. 40 feet down, just as Gerald had written. The stairs ended at a natural cavern. Marcus swept his flashlight across the space and his breath caught. The walls sparkled. Not metaphorically. They actually sparkled like the cave was lined with stars. He moved closer, hands shaking, and examined the rock face. Embedded in the stone were crystals, hundreds of them, thousands, ranging from pebble-sized to fist-sized, some green, some blue-green, some purple in his flashlight's beam, but as he shifted the angle of the light, they changed, turned reddish. Color change stones, alexandrite. Marcus touched one, half expecting it to disappear like a mirage, but it was real, solid, cool under his fingers. He moved deeper into the chamber. His light revealed tool marks. Gerald had been working here, carefully extracting samples, documenting, but he'd barely scratched the surface. The main chamber opened onto several tunnels. Marcus followed the largest one, ducking through a narrow passage into another cavern. This one was bigger. The walls here were different, streaked with green, more crystals. Emeralds, he thought, though he wasn't sure. He'd need an expert to confirm. And there, in the back of the chamber, something else, a mineral vein that looked almost white in the flashlight beam. He touched it, felt the slightly soft texture. Lithium. Marcus had read enough to know lithium was gold for the modern age. Electric car batteries. Energy storage. Countries were fighting over lithium deposits, and Gerald had found a massive deposit of it beneath his mountain property. Marcus stood there in the darkness beneath the earth, surrounded by more wealth than he'd ever imagined, and felt dizzy. This was real, all of it. Gerald hadn't been crazy. He'd been protecting something that could change lives, that could change everything. Marcus's mind raced. The mining company, the threats Gerald had mentioned, the offers that kept increasing. They knew. Somehow they knew or suspected what was here, and now it belonged to him. He thought of Derek's smug face, Aunt Marcia's condescension, all of them so certain he was accepting worthless land. He thought of Lily sleeping upstairs, of the life he could give her, college paid for, a real home, security, everything Emily had wanted for her. But he also thought of Gerald's words, worth killing for if they knew. Marcus turned and made his way back through the tunnels, up the stairs, replacing the floorboards carefully. He stood in the cabin, breathing hard, mind spinning. Outside, dawn was breaking. Pale light filtered through the pines. Somewhere in the distance, a raven called, and on the dirt road leading to the property, so faint he almost missed it, the sound of an engine. A vehicle approaching. Marcus moved to the window. A dark truck was rolling slowly up the driveway, headlights still on in the early gloom. They had company. And Marcus had a feeling his real problems were just beginning. The truck stopped about 50 yards from the cabin, engine idling, exhaust curling white in the cold morning air. Marcus pressed against the wall beside the window, heart pounding, watching. The headlights cut off. For a long moment nothing happened, just the sound of the engine and the wind through the pines. Then the driver's door opened. A man stepped out, tall and lean, wearing a canvas jacket and work boots. He stood there surveying the property like he owned it, like Marcus was the trespasser. Marcus's hand found the revolver on the mantel. The man started walking toward the cabin, slow and purposeful. He stopped at the porch steps, tilted his head back, and called out, "Morning in there. Name's Walter Hutchins. I live about 3 miles down the mountain. Saw your truck yesterday. Figured I'd come by and introduce myself." The voice was calm, friendly even, but Marcus had learned not to trust friendly voices. He glanced back at Lily, still sleeping by the cold fireplace, then moved to the door. He opened it a crack, keeping his body blocking the entrance. "Little early for a social call," Marcus said. Walter Hutchins smiled. He was maybe 70, weathered face, clear blue eyes that had seen plenty. "Mountain hours," he said. "Been up since 4. Figured you might be too, being new to the altitude and all. He paused. You're Gerald's nephew, I'm guessing. Marcus, right? Got your daddy's build. You knew my father. Met him once or twice when he came to visit Gerald. Long time ago now. Walter shifted his weight, hands in his pockets. I was sorry to hear about Gerald passing. He was a good neighbor. Quiet, kept to himself, but good. Marcus studied the old man's face, looking for deception. You two were friends. Friends might be strong, but we looked out for each other. Up here, that matters. Harsh winter comes, you need to know who's still breathing. Walter glanced around the property. Place looks better than I expected. Gerald kept things up pretty well right till the end. You saw him before he died? Last time was maybe 2 months back. He came by my place, had coffee, seemed tired, but his mind was sharp as ever. Walter's eyes came back to Marcus. He mentioned you, actually. Said if anything happened to him, the property would go to his nephew back east. Said he hoped you'd be smart about it. The words sent a chill down Marcus's spine. Smart how? Walter's expression shifted, became more serious. Can I come in? What I got to say, I'd rather not shout it where anyone passing might hear. Marcus hesitated, then stepped back and opened the door wider. Walter came in, taking off his cap, nodding respectfully when he saw Lily stirring by the fireplace. Your daughter? Walter asked quietly. Lily? She's 8? Walter smiled softly. Pretty name. She looks like she's got her mama's features. She does. Marcus closed the door. You said you had something to tell me. Walter turned, his face grave. Gerald was worried the last few years. Said people were watching the property, asking questions in town about him, about his land. What kind of people? Mining company. Mountain Consolidated. They've been buying up mineral rights all through this county. Mostly old, played-out claims from the gold rush days, but they've got new technology now. Can extract stuff the old-timers couldn't. They've made a lot of people rich, made themselves richer. Marcus kept his face neutral. They approached Gerald. Multiple times. Started maybe 10 years back with a lowball offer, 20,000. Gerald told them no. They came back a year later with 50, no again. It went on like that. The offers kept climbing. Last I heard, they were up to $500,000. $500,000 for property assessed at 18,000. They knew. They had to know something was here. Gerald never took it, Marcus said. No. He said the land wasn't for sale at any price. Made them angry. They started getting pushy. Sent lawyers. Threatened to have the property condemned. Claimed the old mine entrance was a safety hazard. Gerald fought them every step. Walter paused. Then about 6 months ago they tried something different. What? Tried to have him declared incompetent. Filed papers saying he was mentally unfit, living in squalor, danger to himself. Wanted a court-appointed guardian who could make decisions about his property. Marcus felt his blood run cold. That's legal? If they can prove it. They brought a psychologist up here. Gerald refused to cooperate. The case got thrown out, but it scared him. He told me he was making arrangements, making sure everything was documented, making sure someone he trusted would inherit. He didn't trust his family, Marcus said quietly. Walter shook his head. He said his family gave up on him decades ago, but he kept track of you. Knew about your wife passing, knew you were struggling. He said you had grit, that you'd understand what he was leaving you. Lily sat up, rubbing her eyes. She saw Walter and immediately moved closer to Marcus. It's okay, Bug, Marcus said. This is Mr. Hutchins. He's a neighbor. Walter gave her a gentle smile. Pleased to meet you, Miss Lily. He turned back to Marcus. Look, I don't know what Gerald found on this property. He never told me specifics. But I know it was valuable. Valuable enough that Mountain Consolidated wants it bad. And I know they don't take no for an answer. Are you saying they had something to do with his death? Walter's jaw tightened. Official cause was heart attack. Found him in his truck in town. Doctor said it was natural. He was 76, had a bad heart, but Gerald told me a week before he died that he'd been followed, that his truck had been tampered with. Brakes felt spongy. I told him to go to the sheriff. He said the sheriff's brother-in-law works for Mountain Consolidated. The implications hung heavy in the air. "So what am I supposed to do?" Marcus asked. "That's up to you. You could sell, take whatever they offer and walk away. Or you could stay and fight. But if you fight, you need to know what you're up against. They've got money. They've got lawyers. They've got connections." Walter moved toward the door. "Either way, be careful. Watch your back. Don't trust anyone in town until you know whose side they're on." He put his cap back on and stepped outside. Then he turned back. "One more thing. Gerald kept records, documentation. He was meticulous about it. If you find those records, make copies. Keep them somewhere safe, somewhere off this property." Walter's blue eyes were hard, just in case. He walked back to his truck and drove away, leaving Marcus standing in the doorway with more questions than answers. Over the next 3 days, Marcus worked with a new urgency. He went back down to the cavern, this time with better equipment. A lantern, his phone camera, useless for calls but perfect for photos, a small hammer and collection bags. He photographed everything: the Alexandrite crystals, the emerald veins, the lithium deposits, the tunnel systems. He took samples, carefully extracting small specimens and labeling them with locations. The scale of it became clearer each time he went down. This wasn't just a small pocket of minerals. This was a massive deposit extending deep into the mountain. Gerald's maps showed tunnels he'd explored running hundreds of feet, and those were just the ones he'd documented. There could be more. Marcus found Gerald's sample collection in a locked cabinet in the storage room. Dozens of specimens, each labeled with coordinates and dates, each one worth thousands, maybe tens of thousands. He also found something else: a fireproof safe hidden behind a false panel in the bedroom closet. It took him an hour to get it open using the combination Gerald had written in code in the journal. Inside were more documents: geological surveys, assay reports from samples Gerald had sent to labs under fake names, each report confirming what Marcus was seeing: high-grade Alexandrite, gem-quality emeralds, lithium concentrations that made the geologists use terms like exceptional and unprecedented. There was also a folder of correspondence with Mountain Consolidated, the offers Walter had mentioned, documented in writing. But there were other letters too, threats disguised as legal warnings, notices of intent to seize the property for unpaid taxes, even though Gerald's records showed he'd paid every cent. Attempts to claim the property sat on public land, and his deed was invalid. They'd tried everything to get him off this land. And at the bottom of the safe, a letter addressed to Marcus. "Nephew, if you're reading this, I'm gone. I'm sorry I couldn't tell you about this in person. Sorry I wasn't part of your life. But I've been watching from a distance. I know you're a good man. I know you've suffered. I know you need a break. This is it. This land holds more wealth than you can imagine. Enough to take care of your daughter forever. Enough to make you powerful. But power attracts predators. Be smarter than me. Don't try to handle this alone. Find people you can trust. Document everything. And whatever you do, don't let Mountain Consolidated take this from you. They killed the earth to get rich. Don't let them kill you too. Gerald. They killed the earth to get rich. Strong words. But sitting in that cabin, surrounded by evidence of corporate harassment and suspicious circumstances around Gerald's death, Marcus believed them. He spent the next morning making copies of everything. He used the scanner function on his phone, uploading documents to a cloud storage account. He photographed the photographs. He made handwritten copies of the most important details. Then he packed up his best samples, small specimens that wouldn't be obviously missed if someone searched the cabin. He packed them carefully in a backpack with some clothes and toiletries. "Daddy, where are we going?" Lily asked as he loaded her into the truck. "Just a little trip, Bug. Need to run some errands in town." The drive down the mountain took 45 minutes. Ridge Hollow turned out to be bigger than he expected. Not much, but there was a main street with actual businesses, a grocery store, a hardware shop, a diner, and on the edge of town, a library. Marcus parked in front of the library, a small brick building that looked like it had been there since the 1950s. Inside, it was quiet and warm. An older woman at the desk looked up and smiled. "Help you find something?" "Internet access?" Marcus asked. She pointed to 3 computers in the corner. 15 minutes free, then it's $1 for every 30 minutes after. Perfect. He got Lily set up with some children's books, then sat down at a computer. He logged into his email and composed a message to Connor Wells, his only friend from high school, who'd gone on to become a lawyer. They hadn't spoken in 2 years, but Connor had sent a card after Emily died with his contact info and an offer to help if Marcus ever needed anything. Marcus typed carefully. "Connor, it's Marcus Reed. I need legal advice. Inherited property in Colorado. Complications. Can you recommend someone out here who handles property law and mineral rights? Also need someone who can keep things quiet. We'll explain more when we talk. Marcus." He hit send, then spent the next hour researching. Mining law, mineral rights, estate inheritance, property disputes. The more he read, the more complicated it became. But one thing was clear. If he wanted to develop the deposit, he needed permits, surveys, environmental assessments. It would take years and cost hundreds of thousands in legal fees. But if he could prove ownership and value, he could potentially license the mineral rights. Let someone else do the extraction while he took royalties. That was cleaner, safer. Or he could sell, take the money and run. Except running meant Mountain Consolidated would get exactly what they'd been trying to steal from Gerald. And something in Marcus couldn't stomach that. From the library, they drove to the university in Durango, about an hour away. Marcus had looked up the geology department online. There was a professor, Dr. Sarah Chen, who specialized in mineralogy and gemstones. He parked near the science building and found her office. The door was open. A woman in her 50s sat at a desk covered in rock samples and papers, reading glasses perched on her nose. Marcus knocked. "Dr. Chen?" She looked up. "Yes?" "I'm sorry to drop by without an appointment. My name is Mark Thompson. I'm a collector. Found some interesting samples and was hoping you could take a look. Tell me what I've got." It was a risk. But Walter had said not to trust anyone in Ridge Hollow. Durango was far enough away to maybe be safe. Dr. Chen's eyes lit up in the way only a true enthusiast's could. "I always have time for interesting rocks. Come in." Marcus sent Lily to wait in the hall with her tablet, then closed the door and pulled out his samples. He'd brought 3 pieces, a chunk of color-change crystal, a stone with emerald veining, and a sample of the lithium-bearing rock. He laid them on her desk. Dr. Chen picked up the first one, turned it under her desk lamp. Her eyebrows went up. She grabbed a loupe and examined it more closely. Then she stood, went to her window, held it up to natural light. "Where did you get this?" she asked, her voice careful. "Creek bed, up in the San Juans." She set it down and picked up the emerald sample, examined it the same way. Her hands, Marcus noticed, were shaking slightly. "Mr. Thompson, these aren't just interesting, these are extraordinary." She looked at him over her glasses. "This first sample is alexandrite, natural, high quality, probably over 5 carats in this rough stone alone. Do you know what that's worth?" "I was hoping you could tell me." Cleaned and cut, this single stone could fetch $80,000 to $100,000, maybe more depending on the color change and clarity. She picked up the emerald sample. "This is also gem quality. Colombian emeralds sell for less, but this is still worth thousands per carat." Marcus kept his face neutral, even as his heart raced. "And the third sample?" She examined the whitish rock. "Lithium carbonate, high concentration. Not as exciting as the gemstones, but commercially valuable. Very valuable, actually." She set it down and fixed him with a direct stare. "Where exactly did you find these? And please don't tell me a creek bed. Nobody finds gem-quality alexandrite and emerald together by accident in a Colorado creek." Marcus met her eyes. "If I told you the location, what would you do with that information?" "That depends. Are you asking me to evaluate these professionally, or are you asking me to keep a secret?" "Both." Dr. Chen sat back in her chair. She studied him for a long moment. "Mr. Thompson, if that's even your name, I've been studying rocks for 30 years. I can tell you're nervous. I can tell this is important. And I can tell you're worried about the wrong people finding out." She tapped the alexandrite sample. "If there's more where this came from, you're sitting on a significant discovery, potentially worth millions, possibly hundreds of millions depending on the deposit size and quality." "Hundreds of millions," Marcus repeated, the number almost meaningless, it was so large. "Conservatively, if these samples are representative and the deposit is substantial." She leaned forward. "Here's what I can do. I can test these properly, give you documentation of composition and estimated value. I can be discreet. But I need to know this isn't stolen, that you have legal right to whatever claim you're working." "I inherited the land. It's mine legally." "Then you need to file a mining claim, document the discovery, protect your rights before someone else stakes a claim." "What if someone's already trying to take it?" Dr. Chen's expression hardened. "Then you need a lawyer, a good one, and you need to move fast." She gathered the samples. "Leave these with me. Come back tomorrow. I'll have preliminary results and some referrals for attorneys who handle this kind of thing." Marcus hesitated. These samples were evidence, proof. What if she told someone? "I give you my word," Dr. Chen said, reading his face. "Whatever you found, it stays between us until you decide otherwise. I'm a scientist, not a prospector. Your discovery, your choice." Marcus nodded and left, feeling like he'd just stepped off a cliff and was waiting to see if he'd fly or fall. That night, back at the cabin, Marcus couldn't sleep. He lay in the darkness listening to Lily breathe, thinking about hundreds of millions of dollars buried beneath his feet. Thinking about Gerald, who'd sat on this fortune for years and died with almost nothing to show for it, except peace and solitude. Was the money worth it, worth the risk? He thought about Lily's worn-out shoes, about the stack of medical bills from Emily's treatment that still haunted him, about the way Derek had looked at him at that barbecue, pitying, dismissive. Yeah, it was worth it. Around 2 a.m, Marcus heard an engine. He was at the window in seconds, peering out into darkness broken only by moonlight. A truck sat on the road above the property, headlights off, just sitting there, watching. Marcus grabbed his phone and took a photo, but the distance was too great to make out details. The truck stayed for maybe 10 minutes, then drove away slowly. Someone was watching. The next morning, Marcus found a note tucked under his windshield wiper. Plain white paper, computer printed. "This property has issues you don't understand. The previous owner made poor decisions that put him in difficult positions. You have a daughter to think about. Be smarter than Gerald was. Call this number." A phone number followed. Marcus's hands clenched, crumpling the paper. They knew about Lily. That afternoon, he drove back to Durango alone. Walter had agreed to watch Lily for a few hours, and Marcus trusted the old man more than anyone else he'd met in Colorado. Dr. Chen was waiting with a full report. The samples were exactly what she'd thought. The alexandrite was rated exceptional. The emeralds were high quality. The lithium sample showed concentrations that would make mining companies salivate. "Your deposit, if it's extensive, could be worth anywhere from $200 million to $500 million, she said. "Maybe more. I've never seen anything quite like this." Marcus felt dizzy. $500 million. "I made some calls," Dr. Chen continued, quietly. "There's an attorney in Denver, Patricia Knowles. She specializes in mineral rights and dealing with large mining corporations. She's good. More importantly, she's honest. Here's her contact information. Marcus took the card she offered. Thank you for being discreet. One more thing, Dr. Chen said. I asked around carefully about deposits in the San Juan range. Your property, wherever it is, it's being actively investigated by Mountain Consolidated. They've filed exploratory permits for several parcels in that area. They're looking for something. I think they know generally where your deposit is located. They just don't have access yet. Because Gerald wouldn't sell. And now you won't either, I'm guessing. Marcus met her eyes. No, I won't. Dr. Chen smiled. Good. People like Mountain Consolidated. They've torn up half the western states chasing profits. Someone should make them work for it. She handed him the samples back. Be careful, Mr. Thompson, or whatever your real name is. Big money makes people do terrible things. Driving back to Ridge Hollow, Marcus's mind raced. He needed to call this attorney, needed to file claims, needed to protect himself and Lily. But first, he needed to know exactly what he was dealing with. That night, after Lily was asleep, Marcus went back down to the cavern. He followed Gerald's maps deeper this time, exploring tunnels he hadn't entered before. The deposit was even larger than he'd realized. Chamber after chamber filled with mineral veins. Some of the alexandrite crystals were massive, the size of his fist. The emerald veining ran through entire walls. Gerald had marked unstable areas on his maps. Marcus avoided those, but he ventured far enough to understand the scope. This wasn't just a lucky find. This was generational wealth, legacy money. He was so focused on the formations that he almost missed the sound. Footsteps, above him, in the cabin. Marcus froze, heart hammering. He'd left Lily sleeping upstairs. He'd locked the door, but someone was moving around up there. Multiple someones from the sound of it. He grabbed his flashlight and moved quickly back through the tunnels, taking care to be quiet. As he climbed the stone stairs, he could hear voices, men talking in low tones. Nothing down here but old furniture. Check the storage room again. Old man had to keep records somewhere. What about the kid? Leave her. Boss said no witnesses, but she's just sleeping, she won't remember. Marcus's vision went red. They were in his cabin, near his daughter, talking about witnesses. He reached the top of the stairs, still hidden below the floor. Through the gap where he'd removed the boards, he could see shadows moving. At least 3 men, all wearing dark clothes, going through his things. What happens next will turn this night upside down, reveal a truth nobody expected, and remind us why sometimes the quietest voices carry the most power. Stay tuned to see what happens next. If you're enjoying the story, please like, share, and subscribe for more. Marcus's phone was in his pocket. Carefully, silently, he pulled it out. No signal down here, but the camera still worked. He angled it through the gap and started recording. The men moved through the frame. One was going through Gerald's boxes. Another was examining the journal Marcus had left on the table. Found something, the one with the journal said. Looks like the old man kept detailed notes. Grab it. Grab everything that looks important. Marcus watched, helpless, as they loaded papers into a bag. They were stealing evidence, stealing Gerald's life's work. One of them moved toward the bedrooms, toward Lily. That broke Marcus's paralysis. He couldn't stay hidden, couldn't let them near his daughter. He burst up through the floor opening, flashlight in one hand, revolver in the other. "Get the hell out of my house!" he shouted. The 3 men spun around. They were younger than Marcus expected, maybe late 20s or early 30s. Hired muscle, not executives. One of them reached for something at his waist. "I've got a gun pointed at you and a child in the next room," Marcus said, his voice deadly calm. "You really want to escalate this?" The men looked at each other. The one holding Gerald's journal slowly set it down. "We're just doing a job, man," he said. "Nothing personal." "Whose job? Who sent you?" "Can't say. But you got something that doesn't belong to you, something worth a lot of money." "It belongs to me. Legally, I have the deed. One of the others, a bigger guy with a shaved head, laughed. Deeds can be challenged. Property can be condemned. Accidents happen, especially in these mountains. Long way to help if something goes wrong. It was a threat, clear as day. I'm recording this, Marcus said, lifting his phone. I have your faces, your voices, your trespassing, threatening me. If anything happens to me or my daughter, this goes to the police, to the media, everywhere. The three men exchanged looks again. Then slowly they moved toward the door. You're making a mistake, the one with the journal said. People tried to help Gerald, tried to make him rich. He chose pride over money. Look where it got him. Get out, Marcus repeated. They left, but not before the bald one turned at the door and said, Nice kid you got. Be a shame if she had to grow up without a father. Then they were gone, truck doors slamming, engine roaring to life, tail lights disappearing down the mountain. Marcus stood there shaking, adrenaline flooding his system. He checked on Lily, still sleeping somehow. He locked every door, wedged chairs under the handles, then sat at the table with his gun and his phone, watching the windows until dawn. In the pale morning light, he watched the video he'd recorded. The faces were clear. The threats were documented. The license plate of their truck as they'd left was visible in one frame. Evidence. But evidence of what? Trespassing? Intimidation? Would the local sheriff even care if his brother-in-law worked for Mountain Consolidated? Marcus made a decision. He couldn't stay here. Not now. Not with Lily. Not until he had protection. Legal protection. He packed quickly, taking only essentials and all of Gerald's important documents. He woke Lily gently. We're taking a little trip, Bug, going to stay in a hotel for a few days. Why? She asked, still sleepy. Just need to handle some grown-up business. You'll like it. They have cable TV and a pool. By 8 in the morning, they were checked into a cheap motel in Durango. Marcus left Lily watching cartoons and went to make phone calls. First, to the number on Patricia Knowles's card. He got her voicemail and left a detailed message about who he was, what he'd inherited, and that he needed urgent legal help. Second, to Connor Wells back east. Connor answered on the third ring. Marcus, holy hell, I was just about to call you back. Got your email. What's going on? Marcus told him everything. The inheritance, the deposit, the threats, the break-in last night. Connor listened without interrupting. When Marcus finished, there was a long silence. Jesus, Marcus, you're sitting on a fortune and people are already trying to take it from you. I know. I need help. I need to know my rights. I need to protect Lily. Okay. First thing, this Patricia Knowles, if she's who I think she is, she's excellent. Expensive, but excellent. She's handled cases against major mining corporations before. Won most of them. If she takes your case, you're in good hands. And if she doesn't, then we find someone else. But Marcus, listen to me. You need to file official claims immediately. Document everything, every threat, every contact. Build a paper trail. These companies, they rely on intimidation. They rely on people being too scared or too broke to fight back. But if you have proof of harassment, of illegal threats, you have leverage. Leverage to do what? To negotiate, or to destroy them. Depends on how brave you're feeling. Marcus thought about the men in his cabin last night, thought about the note on his windshield, thought about Gerald, possibly murdered for refusing to give up what was his. I'm feeling pretty brave, Marcus said. Good, then let's make them regret ever messing with you. They talked for another hour. Connor walked him through the basics of filing mining claims, documenting harassment, building a legal case. He also warned Marcus about the costs. Good lawyers didn't come cheap. Fighting corporations took money. I can front you some, Connor offered. Call it a loan against your eventual fortune. I can't ask you to do that. You're not asking. I'm offering. Emily was good to my sister when she was sick. This is me paying that forward. Marcus's throat tightened. Thank you. After hanging up, Marcus sat in the motel room watching Lily color in a book she'd found in the lobby. She looked so small, so vulnerable. The idea of those men threatening her made his blood boil. He thought about Emily, about the promise he'd made at her bedside, that he'd give Lily a good life, that he'd fight for her, that he'd never give up. This was that fight. Patricia Knowles called back that afternoon. Her voice was sharp, professional, no nonsense. "Mr. Reed, I got your message. Dr. Chen vouched for you, which carries weight with me. Tell me about this deposit." Marcus told her everything. She listened, occasionally asking pointed questions. When he finished, she said, "You understand that going up against Mountain Consolidated is going to be expensive, ugly, and potentially dangerous. They have lawyers on retainer who specialize in making problems disappear. They've been accused multiple times of harassment, intimidation, even violence. Nothing's ever stuck." "So you won't help me?" "I didn't say that. I'm saying you need to understand what you're getting into. This isn't a friendly negotiation. This is war." She paused. "That said, if your deposit is worth what Dr. Chen thinks, you have resources, and I love making corporations bleed when they deserve it. I'll take your case. My retainer is 50,000. Marcus's heart sank. "I don't have that kind of money." "Do you have collateral, the property itself?" "Yes." "Then we'll work something out. I believe in this case, Mr. Reed. And more importantly, I believe Gerald was murdered. I'd like to prove it. We'll structure my fees against your eventual proceeds. But you need to trust me to do this right. Can you do that?" Marcus looked at Lily, humming to herself as she colored. Yes, I can." "Good. First thing tomorrow, you and I are filing claims. We're documenting everything. And we're sending Mountain Consolidated a very clear message. They don't get to threaten children. They don't get to steal what doesn't belong to them. And if they want a war, they're about to get one." Marcus hung up feeling something he hadn't felt in years. Hope. That night, he finally let himself imagine it. What life could look like with real money. A house for Lily with a yard, college paid for, security. The ability to help other people the way Connor was helping him. But he also knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. Mountain Consolidated had been trying to get this land for years. They wouldn't stop now just because he had a lawyer. They'd escalate, and Marcus would have to be ready. He pulled out Gerald's journal one more time, reading the final entry. "Marcus's boy will inherit this. Hope he's smart enough to understand what I'm leaving him. Hope he's strong enough to protect it." Marcus closed the journal and whispered into the quiet room. "I won't let you down, Uncle Gerald. I promise." Outside the motel window, traffic hummed past on the highway. Ordinary people living ordinary lives. But Marcus's life had stopped being ordinary the moment he'd opened that certified letter. Now it was extraordinary, dangerous, full of possibility. And he was just getting started. Patricia Knowles moved fast. Within 3 days, Marcus had filed official mining claims on his property. The paperwork was dense and complicated, but Patricia walked him through every step. They documented the deposit's boundaries based on Gerald's maps. They filed with the Bureau of Land Management. They sent registered letters to the county clerk. "Now it's public record," Patricia explained over coffee in her Denver office. "Anyone who searches will see you have an active claim. That protects your rights. But it also means Mountain Consolidated will know you're not walking away." "Good," Marcus said. "Let them know." Patricia studied him over her reading glasses. "You're angry. I get it. But anger makes people sloppy. Stay smart. Stay careful. They're going to come at you hard now." She wasn't wrong. 2 days after the claims were filed, Marcus got a call from an unknown number. He answered cautiously. "Mr. Reed, my name is Richard Blackwell. I'm Chief Operating Officer of Mountain Consolidated Mining. I understand you've inherited Gerald Reed's property." The voice was smooth, educated, the kind that came from expensive schools and country clubs. Marcus's grip tightened on the phone. That's right. I'd like to meet with you. Discuss the property. We've had an interest in that area for some time, and I think we can come to a mutually beneficial arrangement. I'm not interested in selling. I haven't made an offer yet, Blackwell said with a slight laugh. At least hear me out. We're prepared to be very generous, more generous than the offers we made to your uncle. Marcus thought about the break-in, the threats, the note on his windshield. How generous? $200,000, cash. You sign over the mineral rights and the property is still yours. You can live there, pass it on to your daughter. You just can't extract anything from beneath the ground. $200,000, more money than Marcus had seen in his life, but a fraction of what the deposit was worth. Not interested, Marcus said. There was a pause. Mr. Reed, I don't think you understand the complexity of developing a mining operation. The permits alone could take 5 years. The environmental studies, the legal fees, it could cost you millions before you see a single dollar in return. We're offering you certainty, immediate funds, a fresh start for you and your daughter. How do you know I have a daughter? Another pause, longer this time. It's a small town, Mr. Reed. People talk. Or you've been watching me, having people break into my cabin, leaving threatening notes. I have no idea what you're talking about, Blackwell said, his voice hardening slightly. If you've experienced harassment, you should report it to the authorities. Mountain Consolidated is a legitimate business. We don't engage in illegal activities. Right, you just make offers people can't refuse. $200,000 is my opening offer. I'm authorized to go higher, significantly higher. Name a number. Marcus thought about it, thought about playing along, seeing how high they'd go, but something in him rebelled against it. Gerald had said no for 20 years. Marcus owed him that much. There's no number, Marcus said. The property isn't for sale. The mineral rights aren't for sale. Find somewhere else to dig. He hung up before Blackwell could respond. Patricia called 30 minutes later. You just got an offer, didn't you? How did you know? Because I just got served with a lawsuit. Mountain Consolidated is claiming your mining claim overlaps with their exploratory permits. They're asking for an injunction to halt all your activity until ownership can be determined. Marcus felt his stomach drop. Can they do that? They can file anything. Doesn't mean they'll win, but it'll tie things up for months, maybe years. Patricia's voice was grim. They're trying to pressure you. Make the legal process so expensive and time-consuming that you give up. I'm not giving up. Then we fight. But Marcus, this is going to get worse before it gets better. She was right. Over the next week, everything escalated. Marcus returned to the cabin to find the windows smashed. Someone had spray-painted words across the exterior wall. Leave while you can. The well had been contaminated. Someone had dumped something foul-smelling into it. The water was undrinkable. His truck's tires were slashed, and every night vehicles would drive slowly past the property, sometimes stopping, watching, making sure Marcus knew he was being monitored. He filed police reports. The local sheriff, a tired-looking man named Tom Brady, took the reports but seemed skeptical. Lot of vandalism up in these hills, he said. Kids, drifters. Hard to say who's responsible. It's not random, Marcus insisted. I'm being targeted. Sheriff Brady shifted uncomfortably. Look, I heard about your dispute with Mountain Consolidated. That's a civil matter. Not much I can do unless you have proof someone specific committed these crimes. What about the break-in? I have video. Faces aren't clear enough for identification, and they didn't actually steal anything according to your report. Trespassing's a misdemeanor. Even if we found them, they'd get a fine. Marcus stared at the sheriff, seeing the truth in his eyes. He wasn't going to help. Couldn't or wouldn't, but the result was the same. He left the sheriff's office feeling more alone than ever. But then Walter Hutchins showed up at the cabin with his shotgun and a sleeping bag. Figured you could use some company, the old man said. I'm a light sleeper and a decent shot. Anyone comes around making trouble, they'll think twice. Marcus wanted to refuse, didn't want to drag Walter into this, but the relief he felt having someone else there, someone watching his back, made him accept. "Thank you," he said simply. Walter waved it off. Neighbors help neighbors. That's how it works up here. That same week, Marcus got a call from a woman who introduced herself as Sarah Chen. No relation to Dr. Chen at the university, but she'd heard about Marcus's situation through the academic grapevine. "I'm an investigative journalist," she explained. "I specialize in corporate malfeasance, environmental crimes, David versus Goliath stories, and I've been investigating Mountain Consolidated for 3 years. Marcus's pulse quickened. "What have you found?" "Enough to know they're dirty, but not enough to prove it. They're careful. They use shell companies. They hide behind layers of legal protection." Sarah paused. "But if you're willing to talk to me, share your evidence, I might be able to connect dots I've been missing." They met the next day at a diner in Durango. Sarah was younger than he expected, maybe 35, with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. She spread files across their booth. "In the last 15 years, Mountain Consolidated has acquired mineral rights to over 40 properties in Colorado, New Mexico, and Wyoming," she said. "In at least 6 cases, the previous owners died under suspicious circumstances. Heart attacks, accidents, one supposed suicide." She pulled out photographs, newspaper clippings, obituaries. "Robert Martinez owned land in New Mexico rich in rare earth elements, refused to sell, died in a single-car accident on a road he'd driven for 30 years. Thomas Greenway, Wyoming, lithium deposit. Heart attack at 52 with no prior health issues. Helen Foster, Colorado, gold and silver veins. Fell down her basement stairs and broke her neck." Marcus stared at the photos. "You think Mountain Consolidated killed these people?" "I think it's suspicious, but I can't prove it. Every death was ruled accidental or natural. No investigations, no foul play suspected." Sarah looked at him. "Until I heard about your uncle. Another suspicious death, another valuable property, another pattern." "Gerald thought they were going to kill him," Marcus said quietly. "He wrote it in his journal, said they'd threatened him." Sarah leaned forward. "Do you still have that journal?" Marcus nodded. "Copies, the originals in a safe deposit box. I need to see it, and I need to see any other evidence you have, correspondence, threats, anything that shows a pattern of harassment." Marcus made a decision. He trusted Sarah. Or maybe he was just desperate for an ally. He pulled out his phone and showed her the video from the break-in, showed her photos of the vandalism, the threatening note. Sarah's eyes widened as she watched. "This is gold. This is exactly what I need. If I can connect these men to Mountain Consolidated, if I can show a pattern of intimidation across multiple properties, I can build a story that'll make national news." "And then what?" Marcus asked. "They get bad press? Pay a fine? They're a billion-dollar company. They'll weather it." "Maybe. But public pressure leads to investigations, real investigations, federal. If the FBI starts looking into these deaths, if they find evidence of conspiracy to commit murder, fraud, racketeering, we're not talking about fines. We're talking about people going to prison." Marcus thought about it. Thought about Gerald. About all the other people who died. About Lily, asleep in the motel room with Walter watching over her. "What do you need from me?" They spent the next week building the case. Sarah interviewed Marcus extensively, documented everything. She tracked down families of the other suspicious deaths and found similar stories: pressure to sell, escalating threats, convenient accidents. She also discovered something else. Mountain Consolidated's chief operating officer, Richard Blackwell, had been involved in every single acquisition where someone had died. He'd made the offers. He'd been the point of contact. "He's either the unluckiest executive in America," Sarah said, "or he's orchestrating this." Meanwhile, the harassment continued. Marcus came back to the motel one day to find his room had been searched. Nothing taken, but everything moved. Someone had gone through his things. The message was clear: nowhere was safe. Then came the official confrontation. Marcus received a certified letter requesting his presence at a meeting. Mountain Consolidated wanted to negotiate in person. Patricia advised against it. It's an intimidation tactic. They want to corner you, pressure you in person. But Marcus wanted to face them, wanted to look Richard Blackwell in the eye. The meeting was at Mountain Consolidated's regional office, a gleaming glass building that screamed money and power. Marcus wore his best shirt, the one he saved for funerals, and walked in with Patricia at his side. Richard Blackwell was waiting in a conference room. He was 50-something, silver hair, expensive suit, smile that didn't reach his eyes. 2 lawyers flanked him. "Mr. Reed, thank you for coming," Blackwell said, extending a hand. Marcus didn't shake it, just sat down. Blackwell's smile dimmed slightly. "I'll get right to the point. We're prepared to make you a final offer. $10 million for the property and all mineral rights. You walk away, start a new life anywhere you want, and we forget this unpleasantness. $10 million. Marcus's breath caught. That was real money, life-changing money. "And if I say no?" he asked. Blackwell's expression hardened. "Then we continue with our lawsuit. We tie up your claim in court for the next decade. We make your life difficult, very difficult. You'll spend every penny you have on legal fees and never see a cent from that deposit." "That sounds like a threat," Patricia interjected. "It's a reality," one of Blackwell's lawyers said. "Mining claims are complex. Disputes can take years to resolve. Your client doesn't have years. He has a daughter to support, bills to pay." "You keep mentioning my daughter," Marcus said, his voice low and dangerous. "Why is that?" Blackwell leaned back. "I'm simply noting that you have responsibilities. A child deserves stability. Taking care of her should be your priority, not fighting a battle you can't win." Marcus stood up. "My uncle fought you for 20 years. He died rather than give in. I think he was murdered because of it. And you think I'm going to cave after a few broken windows and veiled threats about my daughter?" The room went quiet. "That's a serious accusation," Blackwell said carefully. "It's the truth, and it's all going to come out. Every threat, every suspicious death, every dirty trick you've pulled." Marcus leaned forward. "I'm not Gerald. I'm not alone. I have lawyers. I have evidence. And I have someone ready to tell the whole world exactly what you've been doing." Blackwell's face went pale. "What are you talking about?" "You'll find out soon enough." Marcus and Patricia left. As they walked to the parking lot, Patricia grabbed his arm. "That was risky. You just declared war." "They declared war when they killed my uncle. I'm just finishing it." Sarah's article was scheduled to publish in 5 days. She'd taken it to a major national outlet. They were fact-checking, preparing graphics, building it into a major investigative piece. Mountain Consolidated's hidden history, a pattern of death, fraud, and intimidation behind the billion-dollar mining empire. Marcus spent those days at the cabin, preparing. Walter had convinced him to install security cameras. They set up motion sensors on the driveway. Marcus slept with his revolver within reach. On the 4th night, Lily sleeping peacefully in the bedroom, Marcus sat by the fire reading Gerald's journal again, finding comfort in his uncle's words. He didn't smell the smoke until it was almost too late. Marcus's eyes snapped open. He dozed off in the chair. The cabin was full of grey smoke, thick and acrid. Flames licked up the outside wall, visible through the window. "Lily!" he screamed, stumbling toward the bedroom. She was coughing, sitting up in bed, terrified. Marcus grabbed her, wrapped her in a blanket, and ran for the door. It was locked from the outside. Someone had chained it shut. Panic surged through him. The smoke was getting thicker. Lily was crying. The flames were spreading. Marcus ran to the window, smashed it with a chair. Glass shattered. He pushed Lily through first, into Walter's waiting arms. The old man had appeared from nowhere, his face grim. "Come on!" Walter shouted. Marcus climbed through, cutting his hands on broken glass. They ran from the cabin as flames engulfed the structure. The heat was intense, pushing them back. By the time the volunteer fire department arrived 40 minutes later, the cabin was gone. Nothing left but smoking ruins and ashes. Marcus sat on the ground, holding Lily, both of them wrapped in blankets Walter had grabbed from his truck. They watched everything burn. Gerald's journals, the furniture, the memories, but not the evidence. That was in safe deposit boxes. With Patricia, with Sarah, and Marcus had saved the most important thing. Lily was safe. Sheriff Brady showed up, took a report, found evidence of accelerant, arson definitely, chain on the door, deliberate attempt to trap them inside. "This is attempted murder," Brady said, his face troubled. "I'm calling in state investigators." Good, about time. The next morning, battered and exhausted, Marcus sat in a Durango hotel room and watched Sarah's article go live online. Within an hour, it had 10,000 shares. Within 3 hours, it was trending nationally. By evening, news trucks were showing up in Ridge Hollow. The article laid it all out: 6 suspicious deaths, Marcus's testimony, the break-in video, evidence of harassment and intimidation, quotes from families of the deceased. Geological experts estimating the value of deposits Mountain Consolidated had acquired through these suspicious circumstances. The public reaction was immediate and furious. Social media exploded. People demanded investigations. Senators issued statements. The FBI announced they were opening a formal inquiry. Mountain Consolidated's stock price plummeted. And Marcus, sitting there with burns on his hands and ash in his hair, felt something like vindication. His phone rang. It was Patricia. "You did it," she said. "They're going down. The FBI just served warrants. They're seizing Mountain Consolidated's records. Richard Blackwell's been brought in for questioning." Marcus closed his eyes. Good. There's more. The community wants to help. Locals in Ridge Hollow. They're organizing, raising money, offering support. They're on your side now. And Marcus thought about the people who'd mocked him at that barbecue, who'd called him stupid for accepting the inheritance. Wondered if they were watching the news now, understanding what he'd been fighting for. Probably not. People like Derek never admitted they were wrong. But it didn't matter anymore. What mattered was Lily, safe beside him. What mattered was justice for Gerald and all the others. What mattered was standing up to people who thought money and power meant they could do whatever they wanted. Marcus Reed had been nobody, a struggling handyman with grease under his nails and a daughter to feed. But now he was the man who'd taken on a billion-dollar corporation and won. The FBI investigation moved faster than anyone expected. Within 2 weeks, federal agents had uncovered a paper trail that connected Richard Blackwell directly to the harassment campaigns. Shell companies used to hire the men who'd broken into Marcus's cabin. Payments made to local officials to look the other way. Emails discussing how to expedite property transfers and eliminate obstacles. The most damning evidence came from a whistleblower inside Mountain Consolidated. A geologist named David Park, who'd worked for the company for 15 years. He came forward with internal documents showing the company had known about Gerald's deposit since 2008. They'd been systematically trying to acquire it ever since, using increasingly illegal methods. Park also revealed something else. Gerald's death hadn't been natural. Mountain Consolidated had paid someone to tamper with his heart medication, replacing his pills with placebos. Without his medication, Gerald's weak heart had given out. It looked natural. It was murder. Marcus sat in Patricia's office when she told him, feeling numb. "They killed him," he said quietly. "They actually killed him." "Yes, and they're going to pay for it. The FBI has enough to charge Blackwell and 3 other executives with conspiracy to commit murder, fraud, racketeering, and a dozen other crimes. They're looking at life sentences." Marcus thought of Gerald, dying alone in his truck, probably knowing what they'd done, probably unable to prove it. He knew, Marcus said. At the end, he knew they'd gotten to him. Patricia nodded. Which is why he made sure everything was documented, why he left it all to you. He trusted you to finish what he started. Over the next month, the story dominated headlines. Major news networks covered it. Documentaries were being planned. The David versus Goliath narrative captured the public imagination. Marcus became a reluctant hero, the single dad who'd taken on corporate corruption and won. But he hated the attention, hated the cameras, hated strangers recognizing him in grocery stores. What he cared about was rebuilding. The cabin was gone, but the land remained. And beneath it, the deposit that had started everything. With Mountain consolidated in chaos and facing criminal charges, their lawsuit against Marcus was dropped. His mining claims were validated. The property was unquestionably his. Now came the hard part, figuring out what to do with it. Marcus stood before a packed town council meeting in Ridge Hollow 3 months after the fire. The community center was standing room only. People had driven from neighboring towns to hear what he had to say. Cameras from local news stations lined the back wall. Lily sat in the front row beside Walter, wearing her favorite purple dress. She gave Marcus a thumbs up. He stepped to the microphone, hands shaking slightly. Public speaking had never been his thing. He was more comfortable with wrenches than words, but this mattered. "Thank you all for coming," he started. "I know there's been a lot of speculation about what I'm planning to do with the property and the mineral deposit. Some people think I'm going to sell to the highest bidder and disappear. Some think I'll develop it myself and keep all the profits." He paused, looking around the room. He saw faces he recognized now. The woman from the grocery store who'd been kind to Lily. The hardware store owner who'd given him advice on rebuilding. Even a few people from Derek's barbecue, looking uncomfortable. "My Uncle Gerald lived on that land for 23 years. He was called crazy. People said he'd wasted his life hiding in the mountains. But he wasn't crazy, and he didn't waste anything. He was protecting something valuable from people who would have exploited it for their own gain." Marcus pulled out a folder of papers. "I've spent the last 2 months working with ethical mining consultants, environmental experts, and community development specialists. What I'm proposing is this: a community trust." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. "The mineral deposit will be developed by a cooperative mining operation, not a corporation. A cooperative owned by local workers and managed with environmental safeguards. Extraction will be done carefully, sustainably, with minimal impact to the land." He clicked to a presentation slide Patricia had helped him prepare. "Proceeds from mineral sales will be divided this way. 30% goes to the workers and operational costs. 20% goes into an environmental restoration fund to repair any damage and protect the surrounding forest. 50% goes into Gerald Reed Memorial Trust, which will fund specific community programs." Another click. "Those programs include full scholarship fund for any child in this county who wants to attend college or trade school, a community health clinic offering free and low-cost medical care, mental health services, because grief and struggle shouldn't bankrupt families the way it almost did mine, small business grants for local entrepreneurs, and environmental conservation programs to protect these mountains for future generations." The room was silent now. People were staring at him. "I'm keeping a small portion for myself and my daughter, enough to live comfortably, enough to give Lily the future her mother wanted for her. But the bulk of this wealth belongs to the community. My uncle died protecting it. I'm not going to hoard it. I'm going to use it the way he would have wanted, to help people, to make things better." He stepped back from the microphone. For a moment, nothing happened. Then Walter Hutchins stood up and started clapping. Slow at first, then faster. Others joined. Soon the entire room was on its feet, applauding. Marcus felt his throat tighten. He looked at Lily, who was beaming at him with pride that made his heart ache. This was why, this moment, this purpose. The first extraction happened in early spring. Marcus hired a small ethical mining firm called Mountain Heritage Operations. They specialized in low-impact extraction of rare minerals. They brought in local workers, trained them properly, paid them well. Marcus watched the first load of alexandrite crystals come out of the ground, each one carefully extracted and documented. The geologists were awestruck by the quality. Some of the stones were among the finest ever discovered. The first sale was handled through a specialized auction house in New York. High-end jewelers and collectors from around the world bid on the alexandrite specimens. The prices were staggering. A single 20-carat stone sold for $1.8 million. When all was said and done, that first extraction sale totaled $47 million. Marcus stood in Patricia's office staring at the bank statement, unable to process the number. "This is just the first sale," Patricia said. "You have years of extraction ahead, decades possibly. Conservative estimates put the total deposit value at $255 million, possibly higher depending on market prices. $255 million. Marcus sat down hard. He thought about 3 years ago choosing between Lily's winter coat and the electric bill. Thought about the nights he'd lain awake wondering how he'd make rent. "It doesn't feel real," he said. "It's real, and you're going to do amazing things with it." The Gerald Reed Memorial Trust was established by summer. Marcus appointed a board of directors made up of community members, environmental advocates, and financial experts. He deliberately didn't put himself in charge. He sat on the board but had only one vote like everyone else. "This isn't my money to control," he told them. "It's the community's. I'm just the steward." The scholarship fund launched first. Applications poured in. Kids who'd thought college was impossible suddenly had hope. The first class of recipients was 23 students from Ridge Hollow and surrounding areas. Everything paid for. Tuition, books, housing, meals. Marcus attended the award ceremony and watched teenagers cry with joy as they received their letters. Watched parents hug their kids with relief and pride. One girl, 17-year-old Maya, approached him afterward. "My mom's a single parent like you," she said. "She works 3 jobs. I was going to skip college and work to help her, but now I can go. I can study engineering. I can build things." Tears streamed down her face. "Thank you. Thank you so much." Marcus couldn't speak, just hugged her while he cried too. The community health clinic opened in August in a renovated building on Main Street, staffed by 2 doctors, 3 nurses, and a counselor. Anyone could walk in. No one was turned away for inability to pay. The waiting room was full on opening day. People who'd been putting off care for years finally getting help. Diabetes managed, blood pressure checked, infections treated, kids getting vaccinations. Dr. Sarah Martinez, who'd left a high-paying job in Denver to run the clinic, told Marcus it was the most rewarding work she'd ever done. "These people have been suffering because they couldn't afford care," she said. "Now they can get help. You're literally saving lives." Marcus walked through the clinic, seeing the difference already. An old man getting his heart medication adjusted. A young mother with her baby getting a checkup. A veteran finally talking to someone about his PTSD. This was Gerald's legacy. This was what the deposit had always been meant for. By fall, Ridge Hollow had transformed. New businesses opened with help from the small business grants. The elementary school got a new playground and updated computers. The roads were repaired. The volunteer fire department got new equipment, modern gear that might have saved the cabin if they'd had it that night. But Marcus still lived modestly. He'd bought a simple house on 5 acres outside town. 3 bedrooms, a porch, a yard for Lily. It had cost $180,000. He could have bought a mansion, could have lived like a millionaire. Instead, he still drove his old Ford, still wore jeans and work boots, still took handyman jobs occasionally because he liked working with his hands. "Daddy, why don't we live in a big house like on TV?" Lily asked one evening as they sat on the porch watching the sunset. Marcus pulled her close. Because a big house doesn't make you happy, Bug. Having enough makes you comfortable. Having too much just gives you more stuff to worry about. So we have enough? We have more than enough. We have what matters, a safe home, good food, each other, and the ability to help other people. That's real wealth. Lily thought about that. I like that we help people. Me too, Bug. Me too. The mining operation continued through the year. More sales, more money flowing into the trust. The deposit was even larger than initial estimates. The geological surveys showed veins extending deep into the mountain, branching in multiple directions. Marcus worked with environmental scientists to ensure the extraction was sustainable. They monitored water quality in the creek, replanted disturbed areas, created wildlife corridors. This wasn't strip mining or blasting. This was careful, respectful harvesting. And the workers, local people who'd been struggling like Marcus once had, now had good jobs with benefits. They took pride in the work, took care of the land. One afternoon, Marcus took Lily down into the caverns. She was 9 now, old enough to understand. He'd had safety railings installed, proper lighting, ventilation. The tunnels were secure. They descended the stone stairs together, Lily's hand in his. "Whoa," she breathed when she saw the first chamber. The Alexandrite crystals sparkled under the LED lights, shifting colors as they moved. "It's like a fairy cave." "It's pretty special," Marcus agreed. "Your great-uncle Gerald discovered all this. He kept it secret for years, protecting it. From the bad people. From people who would have taken it and not cared about anything except money. But Gerald cared about more than money. He cared about doing the right thing." They walked deeper into the caverns. Marcus showed her the different mineral veins, explained how they formed over millions of years, how the earth created beauty and value through pressure and time. "Kind of like people," he said. "Sometimes the most valuable things are hidden deep. You have to dig to find them. You have to be patient. You have to care enough to look." Lily touched a green crystal embedded in the wall. "Is this why Mommy would be proud of you?" The question caught Marcus off guard. He knelt beside her. "What makes you think that?" "Because you talk to her sometimes. At night when you think I'm asleep. You tell her about the good things we're doing, and you say you hope she's proud." Marcus's eyes burned. "Yeah, Bug, I think she would be. Your mum always wanted to help people. She was a nurse, remember? She took care of sick people, made them feel better. And now you're making lots of people feel better, with the money from the rocks." "Exactly." Lily hugged him tight. "I'm proud of you too, Daddy." They sat there in that glowing cavern, surrounded by millions of years of geological formation and months of human determination, and Marcus felt something he hadn't felt since Emily died. Peace. The town council voted to name the new community park after Gerald. Dedication ceremony was scheduled for October. Marcus helped with the planning, made sure it would be something Gerald would have appreciated. Not fancy, just good. The park sat on 2 acres donated by a local family. It had a playground, walking trails, picnic areas, and a community garden. At the entrance, a simple stone marker with bronze plaque. Gerald Martin Reed Memorial Park, dedicated to the man who protected what mattered and trusted us to use it wisely. The dedication day was perfect autumn weather. Clear sky, cool air, leaves turning gold and red. Seemed like the whole county showed up. Families with kids, elderly couples, teenagers, workers from the mine, doctors from the clinic, scholarship recipients. Marcus stood beside the covered plaque with Lily and Walter. The mayor gave a speech about community and legacy. Then Marcus was asked to say a few words. He stepped forward, looking at all those faces. People who'd become neighbors, friends, family. "I never met Gerald," Marcus started. "He disappeared into these mountains before I was old enough to know him. Growing up, I heard stories. People said he was crazy, said he'd wasted his life, said he'd thrown away his family for nothing." He paused, gathering his thoughts. They were wrong. Gerald wasn't crazy. He was principled. He found something valuable and refused to let it be exploited. He lived simply so he could protect something bigger than himself, and when he died, he passed that responsibility to me. Marcus looked at Lily. For a while I didn't understand why. I was nobody, just a struggling single dad trying to survive. But Gerald saw something in me. Maybe he saw someone who'd been knocked down and kept getting up, someone who understood what really mattered. He turned back to the crowd. Gerald's gift wasn't just the land or the minerals, it was the opportunity to choose. I could have taken the money and run, sold out to the people who killed him, but that would have made his sacrifice meaningless. Instead, I chose to honor what he protected, to use this blessing to help others. Walter pulled the cover off the plaque. People applauded. This park is for all of us, Marcus continued. It's a place where kids can play, where families can gather, where we can remember that community matters, that taking care of each other matters, that some things are worth protecting, even when it's hard. He stepped back. Children ran forward to try the playground. Families spread blankets on the grass. Someone started grilling. It turned into a spontaneous celebration. Marcus found himself surrounded by people wanting to thank him, wanting to shake his hand, wanting to share how the trust had helped them. The woman whose son got a scholarship to study medicine, the veteran who finally got treatment at the clinic, the small business owner who'd received a grant and opened a bakery that was now thriving. And then Derek appeared, Marcus's cousin, looking uncomfortable in khakis and a button-down. "Marcus," he said, "can we talk?" They walked away from the crowd. Derek shoved his hands in his pockets. "I owe you an apology. At the barbecue, I was a jerk. I thought you were making a huge mistake. I thought Gerald was crazy and you were stupid for accepting that property." He looked up, meeting Marcus's eyes. "I was wrong. About all of it. You did something incredible. You changed this whole town, and I've been feeling like garbage about how I treated you." Marcus studied his cousin. Derek looked genuine, ashamed even. "We all make mistakes," Marcus said. "What matters is owning them. I want to make it right. The trust, it needs accountants, right? Financial oversight. I'd like to volunteer. No pay, just my time, my way of contributing." Marcus considered it. Derek was good with numbers, had his own accounting firm, and everyone deserved a second chance. "Okay," Marcus said. "Talk to Patricia. We'll figure out how you can help." Derek's relief was visible. "Thank you. And Marcus? I'm proud to be related to you. Really proud." They shook hands, not quite friends yet, but getting there. Aunt Marcia approached next, looking sheepish. "I was horrible to you," she said bluntly. "I judged Gerald. I judged you. I'm a bitter old woman and I'm sorry." Marcus hugged her, surprising them both. "You're forgiven." One by one, the family members who'd mocked him came to apologize. Not all of them. Some were too proud. But enough to matter. As the sun set and the celebration continued, Marcus sat on a bench with Lily curled against his side, half asleep. Walter joined them. "You did good, son," the old man said. "Gerald would be pleased." "I hope so." "I know so. You honored his memory, honored his sacrifice, and you built something that'll last long after we're all gone." Marcus looked around the park, at children playing, at families laughing, at a community that had been struggling, finding hope again. "This is just the beginning," he said. "There's so much more we can do." Over the following year, the Trust expanded its programs. They started a workforce training center teaching trades, welding, electrical work, plumbing, carpentry, giving people skills and good jobs. They funded a mobile health unit that traveled to remote areas providing care to people who couldn't make it to town. They established an emergency assistance program for families facing crisis, medical emergencies, house fires, job loss, rapid response help so people didn't end up homeless or drowning in debt. And they partnered with environmental organizations to protect thousands of acres of surrounding forest, ensuring it would never be developed or destroyed. Marcus visited these programs regularly, talked to the people they helped, listened to their stories. A single mother whose child had cancer, getting treatment at the clinic without going bankrupt. A young man who'd been in and out of jail, learning welding through the training center and finding purpose. An elderly couple who'd lost their home to a fire, getting emergency assistance and a place to live while they rebuilt. Each story reminded Marcus why this mattered, reminded him that Gerald's sacrifice had meaning. The mining operation continued producing. Second-year sales totaled $98 million. Third year, $63 million. The total extracted value passed $200 million and kept climbing. Marcus had been conservative in his estimates. The deposit was worth more than $255 million, probably closer to $400 million, according to the geologists. But the number didn't matter anymore. What mattered was the impact. Ridge Hollow's population started growing. Young families moved in, drawn by good schools and affordable housing. Businesses thrived. Property values increased, but the trust implemented programs to prevent displacement of long-time residents. The town became a model studied by economists and urban planners. Proof that wealth could be shared, that communities could thrive when everyone benefited instead of just a few at the top. Marcus was offered speaking engagements, invitations to conferences, book deals. He turned down most of them. This wasn't about him, wasn't about fame or credit, but he did accept an invitation to speak at a business ethics conference, stood in front of hundreds of executives and investors, and told them the truth. "Profit isn't evil," he said, "but profit without purpose is empty. My uncle found something worth hundreds of millions. He could have developed it himself, could have died rich. Instead, he died protecting it from people who would have destroyed the land and enriched themselves. He chose principle over profit." He paused. "I had the same choice. I was broke, desperate. I could have sold out, taken the money, given my daughter a comfortable life. But comfortable isn't the same as meaningful. I wanted to show her that wealth is a responsibility, not just a reward, that we're measured not by what we accumulate, but by what we give back." The room was silent. Some of you are sitting on resources right now. Money, influence, power, and you're making choices about how to use them. Are you extracting value for yourself, or are you creating value for everyone? Are you building legacy, or just building bank accounts? He looked around. "I'm just a mechanic. I'm not educated like you. I don't have an MBA. But I know this. We're all going to die. And when we do, the only thing that matters is what we leave behind. Not money. Impact. Did we make things better? Did we help people? Did we protect what's sacred?" Afterward, several executives approached him. One, the CEO of a tech company, was crying. "I've been struggling with this exact question," she said. "My company's worth billions. I've been taking everything I can, maximizing shareholder value. But I'm miserable. And reading about what you did, it made me realize I've been chasing the wrong thing." "So change," Marcus said simply. "You have the power. Use it differently." 6 months later, that same CEO announced her company would be transitioning to a benefit corporation model, prioritizing social good alongside profit. She credited Marcus's speech with changing her perspective. Ripples. That's what Gerald had started, what Marcus was continuing. Ripples spreading outward, changing lives, changing thinking, changing the world in small but meaningful ways. Lily turned 11. She was thriving in school, making friends, joining clubs. She'd started volunteering at the community clinic on weekends, just like her mother had once done. Marcus watched her help an elderly patient one Saturday and saw Emily in every gesture, the gentle way she held the woman's hand, the patient smile, the genuine care. "You're just like your mom," he told her later. Lily beamed. "Really?" "Really. She would be so proud of who you're becoming." They visited Emily's grave that evening. Marcus had moved her to the cemetery in Ridge Hollow so they could visit regularly. Her headstone was simple. Emily Claire Reed, beloved wife and mother. She made everyone feel cared for. Marcus knelt beside it, pulling weeds from around the base. "We did it, Em," he said softly. "We gave Lily the life you wanted for her, safe, happy, full of purpose." Lily placed flowers on the grave, wildflowers she'd picked from the park. "We help lots of people now, Mummy," she said. "Daddy says you would like that." Marcus's throat tightened. He put his arm around Lily, and they sat there in the fading light, remembering, grieving, but also celebrating, because Emily's dream had been a good life for their daughter. And Marcus had delivered that, not through corporate jobs or traditional success, but through courage, through choosing what mattered. By the 5th year, the trust had helped over 2,000 people, scholarships for 300 students, medical care for thousands, small business grants that created hundreds of jobs, emergency assistance that kept families housed and fed. The environmental work had protected 15,000 acres of forest. The mining operation had extracted roughly $240 million worth of minerals while maintaining strict environmental standards. The deposit still had years of production ahead. Marcus was 40 now, grey showing in his hair, lines around his eyes, but he looked younger than he had at 34, less burdened, more at peace. He'd started dating again, a teacher named Rachel who understood his priorities, who admired what he'd built, who loved Lily like her own. Nothing serious yet, but something good, something with potential. Walter was still around, though slower now. He'd become like a grandfather to Lily. Marcus made sure the trust covered his medical bills, helped him maintain his property. "You didn't have to do that," Walter protested. "Yes, I did. You saved our lives. You stood by me when no one else would. This is what family does." And that's what they'd become. Family. Not by blood, but by choice. By shared struggle and mutual care. The mining company executives went to trial. Richard Blackwell and 3 others. The evidence was overwhelming. The whistleblower testimony, the paper trail, the surveillance footage. All of it pointing to years of conspiracy, fraud, harassment, and murder. Marcus attended the trial, sat in the courtroom and listened to them try to justify it, try to claim they were just doing business. That Gerald's death was coincidental, that the harassment was exaggerated. The jury didn't buy it. Guilty on all counts. Blackwell got life without parole. The others got 20 to 30 years. Mountain Consolidated filed for bankruptcy, broken by legal fees and settlements. Their assets were sold off, some bought by the very communities they'd exploited. Justice. Not perfect, but real. Marcus felt Gerald's presence in that courtroom, felt his uncle's satisfaction. The man who'd been called crazy had been vindicated. His paranoia had been justified. His protection of the land had been necessary, and his choice to leave it to Marcus had changed everything. One evening, Marcus stood at the overlook above his property. The cabin had been rebuilt better than before. Sustainable materials, solar panels, proper insulation. It was both a home and a visitor center now, teaching people about responsible mining and environmental stewardship. He could see the mine entrance from here, controlled, regulated, careful, nothing like the destructive operations Mountain Consolidated would have run. He could see the town in the valley, lights beginning to glow as sunset approached, a town that had been dying 5 years ago, now vibrant, growing, thriving. All because one man had chosen to protect something, and another had chosen to honor that protection. Marcus pulled out his phone and opened the voice memo app. He'd been recording thoughts, lessons, hoping someday to organize them into something for Lily. Something she could read when she was older and understand the journey they'd taken. He hit record. Today marks 5 years since I accepted Gerald's property. 5 years since everyone told me I was making a mistake. And you know what I've learned? Courage isn't about being fearless. It's about being terrified and doing the right thing anyway. I was scared every single day that first year. Scared they'd hurt Lily. Scared I'd lose everything. scared I wasn't strong enough or smart enough to protect what Gerald had left me. He paused, watching the sunset paint the mountains gold and purple. But fear isn't an excuse. We all face it. The question is what we do with it. Do we let it stop us, or do we use it to sharpen our focus? Gerald was afraid too. I know that from reading his journals. But he didn't let fear make his choices. He let principle guide him, and in the end, that mattered more than safety or money or approval. The sun dipped lower. If you're listening to this someday, Lily, I want you to know something. Wealth isn't just money. Real wealth is having enough. Enough food, enough shelter, enough purpose, enough love. Your mum and I, we struggled for money, but we were wealthy in the things that counted. And now we have financial security too. But that's not what makes us rich. What makes us rich is knowing we helped people, knowing we made things better, knowing we honored Gerald's sacrifice and your mother's memory. His voice cracked slightly. Don't chase money, sweetheart. Chase meaning. Chase impact. Chase the feeling you get when you know you did the right thing, even when it was hard. That's what your great uncle taught me. That's what I hope I've taught you, and that's what will guide you long after I'm gone. He stopped recording and wiped his eyes. Behind him, footsteps approached. Lily, now almost 12, came to stand beside him. Pretty sunset, she said. Yeah. Daddy? Yeah, Bug? When I grow up, I want to help people like you do. Maybe be a doctor, or run a foundation. Something that matters. Marcus pulled her close. You can be anything you want, but whatever you choose it because it gives you purpose, not because it makes you money or impresses anyone. Choose it because it makes you feel alive, like you did, like I did. They stood there together as darkness fell and stars emerged. Somewhere in the distance, an owl called. The mountains stood silent and eternal, holding secrets and stories and the legacy of a man who'd chosen to protect rather than exploit. And Marcus Reed, the single dad who'd been mocked for accepting worthless property, had transformed that legacy into something extraordinary. Not just wealth, but hope. Not just money, but meaning. He'd taken what was buried and brought it into the light, not for himself, for everyone. Anyone can change the world if they're stubborn enough to stand their ground and brave enough to speak the truth. As the stars brightened over the San Juan Mountains, Marcus Reed didn't reach for his tools or his worry about tomorrow's problems. He simply held his daughter close and watched the night unfold, knowing that the fight he'd stumbled into wasn't just about him anymore. It belonged to every working person who'd been told to keep quiet, every parent who'd struggled alone, and every voice that had ever been buried beneath money and power. The handyman who'd come to fix a broken inheritance had become the man who rebuilt a broken system. Because for Marcus, and for everyone he'd fought for, justice was never out of reach. It just needed someone bold enough to dig. The end. Up next, 2 more powerful stories are waiting for you. Click to keep discovering. And don't forget to hit subscribe if you believe the truth deserves a voice.